Ghost Cult Magazine welcomes in the great Myles Kennedy. How are you doing, Myles?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, man. We're so stoked to talk to you. You seem to have a new record out every year with one of your projects. It is pretty amazing, just as a observationally, it's mind blowing how much music you put out.
Well, I think if you ask most people who know me best, I'm happiest if you give me a guitar and a pad to write some lyrics on. Yeah, I love writing songs. So it's what I think motivates me to keep pushing forward for sure.
Do you literally pick up a guitar or come up with stuff every single day, or is it just now is the time when I need a record? I have a record coming out soon. I better write some stuff.
It depends. I've been kind of going through this strange. Over the last 5 years, I rediscovered my love of playing lead guitar. So I spent way more time than I used to in that realm, where I always before it was all writing all the time. And so yeah, I've got. I think that some days as I'm noodling around with lead stuff, here's a riff here, and maybe I'll turn that into a song. But it just really depends. I try not to force it. But if I know a record's coming, yeah, then I gotta stay focused.
Nice. There you go. Again, I imagine the same thing with lyrics. Do you just have a book and write lyrics all the time, or is it as it comes to you? Does music come first for you? How does that work?
Yeah, music comes first. For me, it's all about the melody. So I'll come up with a chord progression or riff or whatever it is, and then just kind of start singing whatever. A good example, there's a song on the opening track on the new record on Ides of March is a song called Get Along. And when I was trying to come up with, I was coming up with the chord progression, and I was like, all right, now, and I don't even think about it. It just kind of happens. It's usually my first instinct is the one I stick with. And I just, why can't we all just get along? And that's kind of, as I was singing the melody, that was the phrase that came out. So you just kind of run with that, right? But then there are songs where the lyric is something I have to chase down. I'll have a melody I like, and I'm not anything I plug in. There isn't like it's kind of, you want a catchphrase, or that's the whole thing with especially with choruses. You want that catchphrase that then you can turn into kind of the hook, right? So sometimes those are harder to come up with. It really depends. Do I write lyrics first? No. I know great songwriters. Some of my favorite songwriters do that, but the way I approach things, that's not how I do it.
Gotcha. And I love that opening track. And of course, Ides of March is coming out May 14th on Napalm Records. And that opening track is such a good song, and it's such a timely song. I feel like the last bunch of records, even before Year of the Tiger, before that, you've been really honing in on these amazing. You've always been a good storyteller lyrically, but I think your music is really, really, whether it's the time in the world or just some kind of weird, symmetry. But your songs are particularly poignant. The longer you go in your career, the further we get into this.
Well, there's just a lot to draw from. It's an interesting time in history, and it's hard because it can be a slippery slope. I don't want to come across as I don't want to alienate people, and I don't certainly not a controversial figure, but a lot of times songs are just reflections of what you're seeing, and you're just kind of spitting out the visual aspect or whatever you're hearing through these songs. And so, yeah, I think reflective is probably the key word, especially with a record like this, is you're just looking around at the world and trying to make sense of it. That's it.
Right. We know that the idea, the Ides of March, comes from literature. I didn't know if there was a specific personal meaning to you, or was it relevant to the last year and last March and this whole last period of time in the world? I wasn't sure.
Yeah. That song was, it was interesting. I was on a walk with my wife about last March, and there was so much uncertainty then. We didn't know where things were going. And I thought of that phrase, beware the Ides of March, which to me is kind of prophetic and implies these possibilities, just to be cautious. And so it seemed appropriate. So the first half of the song is very kind of ominous and it's dark, but the second half has a very hopeful element, which I felt was important to kind of punctuate the track. There's just the idea that, I believe things can change. I believe cool heads prevail. If cool heads prevail in times of change, we're going to be all right. So hold on to that one dearly.
Nice. I love the optimism. And I was going to say, you've always had kind of a very punk rock PMA, positive mental attitude, that I admire.
Right on.
And of course, this is such a strange time and a difficult time for so many. So many have lost so much, and of course, we reflect on our industry, and I can't imagine this must be the longest period of time you have not been on the road in probably your whole career. I'm imagining.
Pretty close. Yeah, it's been pretty wild. But to be honest with you, it hasn't been the worst thing for me. I think in the sense that I was getting pretty burnt, especially after the last decade, 2019. I was on the road or in the studio combination touring for over 300 days that year. And I remember by the end of 19, I was just like, ooh, boy, I was out of my mind. So when all of this happened, I just chose to be like, you know what? This is it's time to power down, write a record, and just learn to kind of be, there's a honeydew list a mile long, plenty of chores I could get done around the house. And so, yeah, you know what? It's been necessary for me. That I certainly would rather that the world didn't have to shut down and so many people been affected. That part is really not great. But for in my own existence, I chose to just try and stay positive.
Right on. I had a flash in my mind of like a million hands raised with the honeydew lists to the sky, and they all got, hopefully handled. Time with family is irreplaceable, and that's been maybe the one good thing, or time for yourself, or just, time to be in the world and live and, absorb world events and let them happen at you instead of from a tour bus, TV or radio or,
Right.
so secondhand information. So, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure most of your career you sold records by handing them to somebody at a merch table or having them slung for you by the label while you're on tour. Touring definitely helps sell records. So is there any uncertainty? I know Napalm has done a fantastic job of promoting this record, but just any concerns outwardly about sort of record sales in this weird time?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's just this time. I think the idea of selling records post Napster, it's just gotten progressively, worse. And so I think, look, if everything's changed and streaming is now a thing, and you hope to sell some physical copy because that's how we came up, consuming music. But I realize there's a whole generation who probably hasn't even may have never even purchased a record, or a CD or whatever. Certainly not a cassette. So yeah, it's. I don't want to be that guy who's just holding on for dear life to what eventually could become an obsolete way of distributing music. But with that said, there are a lot of people who do love the ritual of getting the vinyl and looking at the album cover, and I'm definitely one of those people, and I assume you are as well. So I don't know if it'll ever totally go away. I just feel like there's just going to be maybe a more finite amount of us.
And I am definitely an albums guy, as are you, I imagined. And I love album artwork. Sometimes very distinctive, like the last Slash album had the gorgeous album cover. I couldn't wait to get the vinyl. So it's the same thing. I love just an album for the sake of sitting down and just being alone with an album. And you always put out a huge volume of songs, a set of new songs that are listenable all the way through. So sequencing, I feel, is like a lost art now.
That's a really good point. And that's something with this record that was really challenging, was trying to you figure out how to sequence these tracks, because there's kind of an eclectic style. Stylistically, you have a number of different vibes, and so how do you weave through that and make it effective? So yeah, I spent like 2 weeks reordering each. I'd sit there one day and I got the album order, and then I was like, no, it feels weird from song 6 to song 7. And so yeah, that's a delicate dance. And so it's nice to know that there's still people who appreciate that, because a lot of people, they say now in streaming world that people generally only get up to about the 7th track, and then they stop listening to the record. So that's a fascinating concept as a songwriter. It's like, you think, well, you put out a 10 or 11 song record and only 7 of the songs are probably going to get heard. That's kind of weird.
We're almost back to the old school vinyl A side, B side. Like, where do you front load an album? Do you back load an album?
Yeah.
To have the title track was often the last song on the album or the first song on the album. So many weird and wonderful things that I think are a little bit lost to antiquity. And I like streaming, and I use streaming stuff too. And I think of Spotify as a great awareness engine, but not a real moneymaker for anybody.
This is true. Yeah. I mean, it's, the days of it used to be in the 70s, 80s, you would tour to promote a record. And now you basically make a record to promote a tour. And because, yeah, with streaming, there's just no real, there's no real, it's just, unless you're, I guess you'd have to just have so many streams to make it be anything significant for your wallet. But hey, it is what it is.
There's only a handful in the world anyway, and even them, I think they consider it extra income, probably not
Right.
a main source. But I do love this record, and I hope everyone streams it, but also buys it, and because you can't satisfy all these things potentially. There's only a finite amount of listeners in the world, but I do feel like new people are discovering rock and heavy metal and heavy rock and classic rock every day. So these albums, some albums that have been maybe forgotten, are getting a new life as a result of Spotify. So I guess that's a silver lining.
That is, I totally agree. It is cool because you can, it used to be if you were, I've heard of this artist, but I don't know if I want to commit to spending the $10 to get the record, because what if I don't like it? And now, yeah, you just go, oh, let's just check it out. So yeah, it's a fun way to discover new music for sure.
It's such a weird thing to me, and I don't want to diverge too much on this further, but it is odd to me that the record industry gives a free sample of your music out before anyone can buy it. Often full albums stream, yours might, a full album will stream somewhere to a website similar to Ghost Cult, or a better one than us, and or bigger one than us, not necessarily better, but at the same time, the movie industry doesn't let you see the whole movie before you can go watch it in the theater. So I always thought that was weird to me.
That's actually a good point. It is interesting how that, especially with, generally, you put out like 4 teaser tracks, and you're not just putting out a little piece. You're putting out the whole song. And so, look, it's great for the music consumer. I mean, it's totally different than when we were growing up. Who'd have thunk that this was how it was going to end up?
And similarly, I think some bands were just intrinsically great at just being producers of stuff. Across the board, Zeppelin, Kiss, Black Sabbath, whatever, they always had a lot of stuff, whatever it was. Do you feel, as you get on in your career, a pressure to keep up and do behind the scenes stuff and do commentary track? And you said you're playing more lead guitar. Do you think someone's going to want to see a Myles solo lead playthrough at some point, and the pressure to have to keep up with that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to keep people engaged, and you have to figure out ways that are going to compel people to take their time. Because really, at the end of the day, there's so much information out there. There's so many things that can keep you entertained on YouTube or whatever it is. And so everybody's jockeying for someone's attention. And you have to figure out ways of being creative to where, hey, I'll spend a few minutes with this artist and give my time to them. It's fascinating. It's such a different dynamic from when I grew up, and it's probably cool for the consumer. Although I will say, I know for me, it's definitely made my attention span very short. And I think everybody now is just like, you're just looking for the quick dopamine rush. You're going through your phone and you're listening to this, and now I want to check out this, or I want to consume this, and it's like boom, boom. Your brain's just, it's fascinating how the digital age is changing our little brains.
So bad. And I work in digital marketing when I'm not doing Ghost Cult. So people know this, I do music marketing as well. And, I like to take breaks to just tune out and read, or tune out and listen, and not multitask and listen. I'm lucky that I work from home, so I can listen to music all the time. And I think a lot of people do have kind of the multi-device experience going on, but it definitely lessens your ability to hone in and focus on things. So when it comes to music, like when I listen to your record, I try not to do anything else except listen to that record. Wow. And the same, or when I go record shopping and I pick up a new record, and I do that for my own enjoyment aside from work.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think that's advice that I like to pass on to everybody. Try it out. Put your device down for a minute.
Right.
Put the phone down for a minute. You're not going to die.
That's good. I actually need that advice, so I appreciate that, because I actually, on my phone, it shows me how much time I'm spending with it every day, and I'm just like, really? I'll see it. Sometimes it'll come up, and I'll be like, oh, dude, it's like I'm addicted, and so I've been working on that. I'm getting better, but yeah.
Yeah, same. Everybody's phone has a little meter that says how much time you spent on an app. It's frightening. And especially for me, and it's Bandcamp, Spotify, YouTube, and then probably Instagram and Twitter. So
right.
Yikes. Yikes.
Right.
My poor brain and I don't know how I would have made it through school for multiple degrees at this point if we had this much technology like 10,
Right.
20
So
years ago.
true.
But yeah, man, this record is so deep, and one of the things that I really appreciate about it is I love, as much as I love rockers and I love riffs. I jokingly said that I think riffs can save the world, and I still believe that with all my heart. But I love these, I don't want to quite call them ballads, but more introspective, chill out, songs, a little bit of a folk influence, great guitar playing, and just beautiful vocals. And I think, at this point, you have outlets where you could let it rip and wail, and then there's sort of, this is like the Myles mature record where you can just kind of flow in what the song needs, and go with the lyrics need emotionally, and in a pocket that I really really enjoy.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It's the it's yeah. I don't even know what to say. That's just really really kind.
You're welcome. I'm complimentary when it is deserved, and that's the true art of critique. And I had to learn that the hard way, but it took a while. But I dig this record, and I love the chill songs just as much as the more amped up
Cool.
raging ones. And then I think at this point in your career, you have so much material to pull from. When you finally get back on tour, how will you choose a set list? Because this record is great. I'd love to hear a lot of it live, personally.
Thank you. I think that's going to be tricky. And I was trying to. We have a few shows coming up, so we're trying to figure out what's going to make the cut. And it's actually a really nice feeling, even just with the two records. Suddenly, you've got all the songs from Year of the Tiger, now the songs from Ides of March, and you suddenly feel confident that you can put together a set that is made up mainly of those tracks and feel comfortable and feel confident, and with a few maybe covers or just something to keep it interesting. But yeah, I'm going to do my best to play as many of these in the live context as possible.
Right on. Just so great to hear that shows are coming back. I'm cautiously optimistic, like we talked earlier. I'm really pumped. I'm so happy to just see tours get announced, and I hope they stay and they work. I know some fans were a little bummed that certain tours were re-announced or rescheduled with less dates. It's just logistically, a year can make a lot of difference in the world, and who knows. We need to support our venues and our artists, and I know people are a little dissatisfied in some cases. It hasn't happened to you yet because you haven't announced a full slate of things, but that's a realistic problem. There's venues gone, and certain things are not going to work anymore that would have worked a year or 2 years ago. This is I hate to keep reusing the word unprecedented, but this has never happened.
Yeah. Yeah, these are. I mean, I keep saying paradigm shift. I mean, things are so different now, and it's the new world. And how do we navigate through it? And I think, hopefully in 5 years we'll be back to normal, but it's going to take some time.
I agree. What's your take on live streaming, whether you enjoy them just as a fan, or any thoughts on maybe doing any in the future? The technology is not quite there for me, but a lot of them have been increasing in quality.
Yeah, I think that you just touched on something that I feel is important. It's the technology in terms of, I heard of a really big one recently. I think it was who was that? It was a really big, I think, Latin artist, and they all these people wanted to watch it, and then it crashed and they couldn't. And so I think that that's the fear, is that you'll have everything ready and you're playing the show and you think, and then all of a sudden screen goes black. So yeah, I don't know how to figure that one out yet. I did one live stream last year for I think it was American Songwriter, and it was fun because I'm playing and I'm looking at the screen and seeing people comment, and it was just like, wow, this is cool. I feel like I'm connecting with people all over the world. But yeah, I mean, it's in general, I haven't, other than that was the last one I did, just because I think I am a little nervous about, will my internet be able to hold up? And so we'll see what happens.
And you're a guy, you made your whole career kind of yelling into a stick in front of people, and that audience, that energy vibe exchange is so important to rock music, much more I think than almost any other. It sucks. I miss it. I miss being at shows. I don't know when I'm going to quite be ready to be in a crowded room again. I think what my last show was and how it went, and I was squished into a little tiny sweaty club, and everybody was on top of each other, and I definitely had beer and other people's body odors all over me, and I don't know if I'd be good with that right now. But how about you? What was your last show, and what was it? When do you think you'd have another one like that?
Yeah, I mean, my last show as a performer was, strangely enough, right in my hometown with Alter Bridge, and we wrapped up the U.S. leg of the tour, and then little did I know I'd be home for over a year. So yeah, I agree. I don't know like I used to love going to clubs and watching bands, and it was the ritual, right? You're all, first of all, you're all like-minded. You're all into the same band. You're all into music, and you're into it enough to where you're willing to go stand in a crowd and get beer spilt on you, and like you said, body odor, but that's part of the fun. And now with it's like we've learned so much about how biology works, and so I think there are a lot of us who are like, oh, I don't know if I can do. It's like we're all going to turn into Howard Hughes. We're all super aware of germs, and yeah, I mean, I've always been kind of that way to my detriment, but now I had a friend actually after the whole thing went down with the pandemic, and he called me and he was like, well, I bet you feel validated, just because for years you were the guy who was washing his hands 30 times a day and always had hand sanitizer. And I'm like, well, that's because I'm weird. I don't I don't feel validated, but yeah, it's going to be interesting how it all plays out.
Myles, you were ahead of the curve, not weird. And I'd much rather be overwashing my hands and keeping my mask on even after I get vaccinated than peeing into jars and growing my nails 10 inches long, because I want to go to shows. I want to see
Right.
you. I want to see you rock out in person in any of your bands, as well as your solo project. And I want to see people again, because I used to do this in person. I'd love to, next time we do this, I hope it's in person,
Yeah.
shoulder to shoulder in a bar somewhere like we usually do. But I've adapted. We've all adapted, but I hope it does come back, because I feel like live music is so important, especially for rock and heavy metal. We need it back.
I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
So super pumped that you may have shows on the docket, and hopefully we're going to hear about more. And obviously there's festivals getting announced, which gets me really excited. Anything else you can talk about in the works? I know that kind of all your different projects are in varying stages. I know Guns is going back on the road, so that kind of takes Slash's time away.
Yeah, we've got with Alter Bridge, it's just a matter of trying to make another record hopefully next year, and with Slash and the Conspirators, we've got lots of songs in the can, so to speak. But I think that what we are trying to figure out is kind of like what you were alluding to earlier, is how do bands at that level tour and promote anything that they release, where it makes sense in the times we're living in. So everybody's just kind of in a holding pattern.
And in this, aside from music and family time, with this last, sort of lockdown year, the shelter in place year, did you pick up any hobbies, read any good books, see any good movies, do anything cool aside from music?
Well, I did. So I tried photography, found out I was really not good. I did not. I have an aunt she does, like, she'll travel all over the world and take pictures, and she's incredible. She just won some award. She actually sent it to me last night. She won some award, and she's like legit good. So I thought, well, maybe I got the genetic component. I understand. Maybe I'll inherit that. No, I did not. So I gave up on that. And then I, did something that I don't get to do much, and really haven't since I was a kid, which was watch a lot of TV, because of this, there's nothing else to do. And I discovered there's great shows. Queen's Gambit was amazing. I watched that. I thought that was cool. And then the show, I've talked about this a few times now, that really helped me, especially in the beginning when things were so dark, I just needed to laugh. There's this show, I didn't even know it existed, and I would just watch it for hours, was Impractical Jokers. Have you seen this show? Like, that is the greatest thing ever. So yeah, that was very, very helpful. I appreciate those four guys for helping me navigate through these crazy times.
Nice. But you like music. Comedy is the great healer of pain. I think today would be George Carlin's birthday, so I always think about George,
wow.
my favorite comedian. A lot of intelligence in there with the funnies, so that's also helpful too sometimes.
Yeah, I was just talking with somebody about him the other day, about one of his things, and yeah, he was brilliant. He was just a full-on genius.
Myles Kennedy, man, I'm so glad to talk to you. Ides of March is coming out on Napalm Records. Congratulations on all your success, man.
Thanks,
And
man.
again, next time in person, I hope so. We'll wash our hands together and then have a chat.
Right on. I would love that. This has been a lot of fun. Great questions, Keith. Just a really great time. Take care, brother.